You're listening to the Ones Ready podcast, a team of Air Force Special Operators forged in combat with over 70 years of combined operational experience as well as a decade of selection instructor experience. If you're tired of settling and you want to do something you truly believe in, you're in the right place. Now here's your host, PJ team leader, jiu-jitsu lover, meme enthusiast, and dad joke aficionado, Aaron Love.
We're keeping the streak going for the worst claps of all time. Welcome back, everybody, to the team room. It is us. It's just Peaches and myself. Brian is busy with his head down at OTS. Trent is off doing whatever it is that Trent does. I don't even know. Half the time, it's hard to wrangle that guy as it is. But, you know, sometimes he just disappears, and that's what SR does. So don't get mad at it. Just miss him when he's gone and be glad when he's back. We want to say thanks to everybody that follows, that likes us, that goes to the Instagram page. We just hit 21K, baby. We're Insta famous now. I don't know if you guys know this, but that's where you start to go ahead of everybody else in the line. You don't have to wait on phone calls anymore. They're like, would you like to wait for customer service? And you're like, no, actually I have 21,000 followers on Instagram. And they're like, oh, okay, well then let me get somebody right now. So it's pretty good. But thanks to everybody that's out there that likes, that follows, that hits us up in the comment section. Most importantly, the people that DM us, that have our questions, that's why we're here. We're trying to engage with you to help set you up for success, to help you earn each breath. So keep them coming. And anything, as always, that you got, any questions, any topics that you want us to cover, just hit us up, man. We're always here, and we always get back to you right away. We would like to say thanks to one of our partners. Today, it's CardoMax. These guys produce some of the best nutrition supplements in the game. Every single morning, I have one of their immuno boosters that goes into my pre-morning shake. It's right back here in my sweet cardboard room that I live in. But the immuno booster helps me out. It's got a ton of vitamin C and other essential chemicals that you need to live your life in a non-sickly fashion. So check out CardoMax. They make energy intensifiers for your pre-workout needs. They make some rehydration drinks. They're awesome. So check out CardoMax. Use the code Ones Ready, and that's for all of our partners. Remember, people that have been with us since the very beginning, we love that they support us. So go support them and help them to supplement their training. Every single one of our partners, we use them personally. And like I said, you can see my CardoMax stash right there. So with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, this week, Chief Master Sergeant retired, Mr. Chad McCoy. Chad, what is up, my friend?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to have you sit down here in the team room. We've known each other and crossed paths for a long time now. I think we go back a couple decades at this point of crossing paths and knowing one another. But I don't want to overtalk it, man. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I just popped my head up from living in Fort Bragg for the past 18 years. But before that, so I came in the military when I was 17. I went straight in to be a PJ. Which was kind of an anomaly for a skinny kid, who didn't have a huge background as a football player, or wrestler, and all those things. I was unassuming, and I can go into that later, because I know this is a more of a preparatory for young guys. But I finished the pipeline first try. I went to Nellis Air Force Base there in Las Vegas. It was called the 66 Rescue Squadron back then. It was all PJs.
Yeah, you were still still living with the helicopters at that time, huh? Yeah.
I did my first deployment out there just north of Iraq and Turkey. It was called Operation Northern Watch, and so we were watching the planes fly over, hoping one would eject and we could go save them. We could become heroes. This is before the war, so we didn't know what we were doing. And I had a Gal 5 at the time with a 203 on the bottom. I had so many magazines on me and rounds. If I fell in the ocean, they would never see me again. But I was playing war back then. I didn't know what I was doing. I was disenfranchised in Vegas. I wanted to do more. So I got popped for an overseas assignment, took it gladly, and I went to Okinawa. Okinawa was a more mature team. Still, it was the 33rd. It hadn't broken off yet. And, then I was learning from older guys. I was getting in the regs. Guys were saying, hey, be informed, and had mentorship for the first time. And I matured there in Oki. Some that know me back then would say I immatured in Oki, but I deployed, we would deploy to Korea, and we do these alerts in Korea while the fighters would fly over the DMZ and, doing sneaky stuff over the border. Had the opportunity to rescue a U-2 pilot out there that ejected right before a PCS, which is kind of cool. Oh, wow. It's kind of a weird thing that not a lot of people know about. But we also did the Philippines. And so, while everyone went to war after 9/11, we were in the Philippines, just kind of pretending like we were at war too. We called it OEFP. I mean, that's what the leadership called it.
Okay.
But it wasn't enduring freedom. I mean, we weren't exchanging fire with anybody. We were reading Stars and Stripes of the guys in Afghanistan. I'll back up 1 second because I feel like it's a good time to say it though. But when 9/11 happened, myself and Nick McCaskill, old Chief McCaskill, who ended up he was killed in Afghanistan years later. We watched the World Trade Centers fall. We were having a typhoon party in his house. His family had gone to the mainland, and him and I were together sitting there, and we were drinking these things called White Dogs. And we watched the World Trade Centers fall, and I remember his phone rang because he was at 320th. Mine didn't. And you just kind of feel like, where do I fit in the mix now? Everyone was super patriotic. It was a visceral event, obviously. And so when that happened, I was committed to going overseas and fighting. So I applied in 2002 to get to the 24th STS. And so for me, it was a roll of the dice where I was going to go next, right? If I stayed in the Pacific, I wasn't going to go to Afghanistan. But there was only a certain units that were really heavy in the mix overseas. And so I knew if I went to the 24th, it would be my golden ticket. And so I was young, inexperienced. I didn't have any combat cred. Like a lot of the older guys were like guys that had been around for 10 years. I was a nobody. I was 22 years old. And I went for selection. Selection is very different, very, very different. Plus, most of the unit was most of the unit was deployed anyways, so there's no one there. Right. But I was in great shape. I was decent at medicine, and so I did really well in the section aspect of it. But they used to have these things called murder boards, and the murder board was like all these guys on this board, all the senior guys, 2 chiefs. You had psych docs, you had commanders. I mean, just everyone's in there, and they would just they wouldn't emasculate you, but they put you in a position to really, choke on your own tongue in these conversations. Sure. And I came in there, and this young cocky kid, and I told him, I said, they're like, why you? And I said, well, if it's not me, I was like, I'll go find a way. And I said, I'll get out and I'll go contract. I'll go to Blackwater. A bunch of my friends had gone over there anyways. And I laid it out there, and I was confident. I wasn't bluffing either. I was either you take me or I'm getting out. And so I got picked up really early in my career. I came up there before I even started Green Team. I deployed to Afghanistan. They asked me, will you deploy? And I said, absolutely. I didn't have any gear. I was also coming from a slow boat from Oki. And they're like, well, we got you. They kitted me out. I left in a plane 5 days later. And
that's insane. Yeah, that is a crazy idea. It
was awesome. It was I was so happy to be on that plane. I had my little scruffy beard growing in. I felt like an operator for once in my life. I had a weapon that was spray painted. I thought I was the coolest kid in the block.
You made it.
Yeah, that was I made it.
You had arrived.
And I didn't do anything on that deployment. We didn't do anything. But it was exposure, and it was a wake up call for me that I was in the big leagues now, right? With guys they're actually doing combat, actually had been in it, and I was able to be around these guys, and so I was stoked. I was in my element. So still talking about background. So I spent the next 18 plus years there, and so I spent my time as an operator on Blue Team, which was doing like the assault mission. We also had CSAR at the time that we were doing. So I would do a CSAR deployment, an assault rotation. And so it was just back and forth. I was deploying twice a year for 3 years straight because I was young and single, and I didn't have any reason to stay home. I wanted to be deployed. So I would fly from Afghanistan to Iraq. And I was in my element, I was racking up my deployment days. And then we teeter into the time where SOCOM was like, well, these guys have way too much purse tempo. And so they're mandating people come back from deployments. And I had, cumulative TOI and deployed 1 year, the whole year. So I covered every white space, and I pinged on the radar of SOCOM. They're like, well, this guy can't do this anymore. So they bring me home. I don't get to train. Everyone's training. I have to do my purse tempo time at home, which hurt me more than anybody. So I did that, and then I went to one of our low visibility squadrons for a long time. I did that for about 7 years. Had some really formative experiences there, some really cool stuff. But I went through another selection. I went through another training period of like 8, 9, 10 months. And so I've done a lot of selections. I've done a lot of training successfully, and have a ton of lessons learned that I hope that we can explore, because we're going to kind of talk about big issues, but where does selection and training fit into that? So post that time, I did my ops time. I made rank. And so when you make rank, it's kind of like a horse when it breaks its ankle. You have to go put it in the field and shoot it. So they told me to shave my face, put a uniform on, and go to ops. And I was going to be ops.
The death. That young man with that painted rifle, so hopeful.
Yeah.
And now like all of your innocence is stripped away.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah, it was terrible.
So I remember the chief at the time, when I came up to the OSS, the ops section, I had a multicam uniform on, and I didn't know which side my name tapes went on. I was a senior master sergeant. I had the wrong American flag patch. It was like a green American flag patch. I think I had like a team patch on this side, and it was like the music stopped in a club, and I smiled. I'm like, they're like, you got the wrong undershirt on. Your boots aren't bloused. And I'm like, man, I am really screwing this up. Let me take a timeout. Let me go back, fix this. I'll come back.
Let me take a knee, face out. I'm going to pull some security. I'm going to collect myself. Let me try this over again.
That's right. I had an existential crisis while I was in ops. I was like, what do I want to do with my life? Is this what I want to do? And I think people saw me struggling with that. And then this great position opened up to run our selection training. So, and it was bigger than just selection training. It was support, it was operators, it was professional development. It was all these things. And man, it was the greatest experience of my career. And so I took over from a great chief who's still in. Him and I had a great time, kind of left seat, right seat together. I didn't have an officer in charge at the time, so I kind of had a lot of latitude to do things. And then I was asked to go to the 24th as the chief. And so when I came there in 2003 as a young man, I was a staff sergeant. Never in my wildest dreams I didn't plan my career to go there. They asked me to do it. I did it. And so I went to the 24th as the chief there, and just recently retired. So now I'm a dirty civilian. I think I've put my military career kind of in the closet a little bit and said, I'm going to move forward. I don't think I'm having the same toil that a lot of guys have, at least not yet. But staying connected helps with that. So this is healthy for me to kind of readdress some of the things that I really care about and I'm passionate about. And, hopefully impart some wisdom to the next generation, because they've got a heavy lift ahead of them, man. I'll stop there.
Yeah, they definitely have a heavy lift, and that's kind of part of a lot of the discussion. So before I get into that, like if we don't cover anything in this that you want to hit, like by all means, like just inject it. We can 100%. It's our podcast. We can go on tangents as much as we want. We don't have to,
right.
Like there's no structure to this, so. Go right in.
And we're stupid, man. Like, I think we cover this, but we're really dumb and we get distracted. Yeah. We'll just start talking about this, especially Peaches and I. It's like we'll see a squirrel and we'll follow squirrels down rabbit trails and stuff. So
I would feel more comfortable, Aaron, if you put on your K-pot and your flak vest right now.
I don't know why he doesn't. I don't know why he doesn't have it on. Actually.
I got my Glock. I got my angry octopus right here. So that's that's the octopus that's up here. If it's got the mad face on, that's what kind of day I'm having. So man, it's all good. I'm all ready for it.
So I live in Florida, so I don't know. Maybe I should be wearing body armor. I thought I was going to see people on bath salts walking down the street like zombies. I haven't seen any of that yet. So
that's so 2011.
That's so 2011.
I didn't know what bath salts were. I thought it was actual bath salts. Like, you can smoke the Epsom salts. What does that do? I was like,
you can smoke anything.
I know you can smoke. Yeah.
You can smoke anything if you're brave enough.
Yeah.
So again, tangents. Wow. Yeah. So as we're talking about, the people that are going to be coming in and actually people that are currently in, Afghanistan at this point of the recording, Afghanistan is pretty much shut down. For if you've been following the news at all. So it's a pretty historic moment. It's really wild. It's something that we address quite common at the squadrons. But so the big question is what does the future fight actually look like? And you have a very interesting perspective considering where you left and retired out of. So In your opinion, what does the future fight look like?
Yeah, so this is everyone's kind of big question, right? Senior leaders, everybody. Um, so a few years back, the Pacific was on our radar. There was things going on in the Pacific. Candidly, a lot of it was VEO related, it was CT related, but it didn't rank. It didn't rank against our focus area of the Middle East, and the Middle East was an existential threat to the United States, for a period of time. I think it's arguable now if it is anymore. But the Pacific was always kind of a burgeoning operational environment. So aside from the VEO threat in the Pacific, now you look at near peer competition with China and also go to the other side of the world and Russia, and then you have North Korea, like still Pacific, and so these kind of things that are bubbling up, and a lot of it's diplomatic, a lot of it's economic, right? But there's a military aspect to it. But I think it's easy to say, hey, major combat operations. Like if you guys remember, I think it was 3 years ago when everyone thought we were going to war with North Korea. Like all the units were getting ready. Everyone's getting their chem bio cleaned off, learning how to put their gas mask on. And for our guys, it was learn how to operate in that environment for a long period of time. With rebreathers on, and not rebreathers, but SCBAs, and doing the hard stuff, man. That's when being an operator is hard, right? In the water, it's hard. Chem bio, it's hard. Everything. I mean, if you're in the desert and it's wide open, it's you got CAS overhead. You got everything stacked.
Anything's easy with CAS.
When guy, that's right, man. That's right. But when you're sweating your butt off, your chem suit is filled up to your ankles with sweat, and you're still expected to perform at this level. It was a tall order for us. So we were kind of jumping through our butts, to figure that out. So all that to say, the Pacific was still looming, right? That kind of subsided. China was still balling, man. China was still working. They were working at different angles. They're all over Africa. They're in the Middle East. They're everywhere. A lot of it was, mining and exploration, and like I said, on that economic front, which they did a really good job at. Kind of positioning themselves in the world, and then you saw the things on the military side, them building islands and kind of being a little bit more aggressive. So all that to say, like I'm not a senior leader in the military. I'm not a strategist. I read the news. I think I'm somewhat informed, but the question is, what do I think the operational landscape would be? I think that's kind of what you're asking. I think it's proxy wars, and I think that it's guys being tied in with partner forces. I think it's going to be, these one-offs in, maybe in North Africa, maybe Central Africa. I think it's going to be a lot of the human aspect of things. And then we have to embrace the EW side, the electronic warfare side, and signals intelligence, and just kind of the new spectrum of what tech's going to mean to warfare. So anyone can shoot a gun. You can teach anyone to shoot a gun. There's lots of people that can lift heavy things. The things that differentiate you and make you special are, in my opinion, are the things that are the distinguishing factors, right? So if I'm a PJ, I can do a lot. Like I can do rescue, I can do all the employment options, medicine, and then once you have that framework, you can keep building on it, right? Controllers really are supposed to be doing, LZ work, doing all the austere LZ and ATC. We built them out over the past few years to be JTACs and be really good at it. On top of that, we're asking them to fly SUAS, or sorry, I'll stop using acronyms, but UAVs. Still using an acronym.
But drones.
Yeah. You really,
it was a shorter.
You really
acronym.
Clean that one
up. So those are the things that differentiated folks, right? But the concept of a soft generalist, man, like those are aplenty. And I don't want to go too far off on tangent here, but I feel like it's kind of important. If you look at SOCOM writ large, and I know you had Greg Smith on here, SOCOM is what, 70,000? You look at how many, you look at how many active duty, I'm sorry, not active duty, but actual special forces operators there are. I think it's like close to 14,000 total. I could be off.
It's a pretty small percentage, and then it's even less once you talk about the actual operators that are at the SOCOM headquarters level.
Yeah, and I'm talking just tab wearers. You go to PJ's controllers, it's pretty small, right? But seals, I think they fluctuate. I think like 4,000 or something like that. I think my numbers are way off. Probably someone will check me on it. But what I'm trying to say is that when do you stop being a soft generalist? Like when are you conventional forces? And I ask this question to a lot of soft guys. I'm like, when do we cease being soft? Like what makes us special? It used to be mission, it used to be size, it used to be, budget, access, all these different things that kind of go into the calculus. But to differentiate yourself from that soft generalist that teeters on, the side of conventional, you really need to bring something to the table. And I think in the future fight, a lot of that's going to be, the technical aspect of what we do and being able to embrace that and run with it. And also, and I'll stop after this, but also it's embracing ambiguity. And so not a lot of people are comfortable with that because we've been operating in an environment where chow is right out your door, right? Logistics chain is done. You're living on an MSS. You have all the infrastructure. You have bathrooms. You have mission given to you. You have very clear intent. The future is not going to be like that. It's going to be small teams of guys trying to figure it out. And in my days doing the kind of the low vis stuff, that's not an innate quality. Not everyone has that. And also all the experience is gone because all the guys that are at war doing that, are going to get older and they're going to leave. Like, Aaron, you're going to retire eventually and all that experience is gone. And so, Afghanistan's winding down to 600 people to basically protect the diplomatic mission there. Those were our lessons learned, man. And they're going to be, those are fleeting. So I'll stop.
No, they absolutely are. And, you hear those terms like near peer and that kind of stuff thrown out, all the time. And nobody really takes the time to kind of define it. We know, at a glance, like, okay, near peer is somebody who is like us, but no one's really like us, just like no one's really like China or Russia or any of those other, big powers. So it's definitely not an easy fight. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be proxy wars, and the terrain that we're going to be operating in is not, whether it's metaphorically or whether it's actual terrain, it will not be like what we have been operating in Afghanistan, Iraq, and stuff like that. It's definitely going to be more digitally based, probably less in your face conflict, direct action type stuff. That's just, me
Yeah, and
speaking
everyone's
out loud.
talking autonomy. Everyone's talking talking about AI, machine learning, and those are things that are going to be in the conversation. Where do they fit? That's a whole other conversation we could have of ethics and all those things, which I would love to talk about. But right now, just staying on track is the way I define near peer, and for the the young guys listen to this, they're going to come up and replace all of us. Is that we haven't fought enemies. We touched on it in Syria, but like MVGs, body armor, same GPS systems, their own satellites that are dedicated to them. They can GPS jam, they can signals jam, they can signals DF. Like we're gonna face an adversary that is gonna make us fight harder than we've ever fought before. And so guys are like, wow, we're ready. We're Americans, we're big badasses. I'm like, yeah, we are, but we've also been fighting cavemen. You know what I mean? And we still they put up a good fight, man. Like we lost a lot of brothers in these fights to dudes that didn't have MVGs. They were shooting RPGs at us, and having to go to the VBIDs that are going on in Syria and all the hodgepodge armor they're making. And you're like, man, we're not fighting refined capability. We've had air supremacy, I believe it since Vietnam, right? No one's been able to touch
a long time.
Since the aircraft was
maybe it's
invented,
Korea.
I think.
Yeah, but so are we going to have that? And so to me, that's the definition. And I don't know if the past 20 years those guys were any better than the guys coming up behind us, but the guys coming up behind us better figure it out fast, because like I said, it's going to be a very capable adversary that is going to require that edge. And so our edge in the past has been candidly, I mean, I think anyone who's been to combat would say this. It's been aircraft supporting us, right? It's been close air support. It's been AC-130s saving our butts. It's A-10s that are willing to fly 100 feet off the deck. Yeah, I mean, so that was our edge, right? So what's the edge in the future? I think the edge in the future is guys being able to take all this information that's going to be coming their way and make sense of it and use it as a strength. I watch guys now walk around with ATAC devices, and they're connected. Everyone's got the mesh network going. So I mean, they have that connectivity, but we also lose situational awareness when we have that, right? Because now we're hyper focused on all of the input and output that we're pushing through digitally, that potentially we don't have the situational awareness around us. And so the ask is that this next generation of guys is able to do both, and maybe video games will help them. Maybe the kids that are gaming hard. My son's down there playing Fortnite downstairs right now, so maybe he's the future.
He's getting it.
Well, he is the future. That's the thing. They're able to multitask. They're digital natives. They're at a level that the three of us could never even dream to be at, and they do it.
Say it, Peaches. Stay these damn millennials, or I swear I'm getting off this.
They're not millennials. They're Gen Zs.
They are Gen Zs. I know.
I think we're millennials, actually.
When were you born, man? Hold on, I'm gonna run the
I am.
the
Yeah, no,
calculation.
1980. I'm on that cusp.
Yeah,
I am one of those damn millennials.
Right.
Yeah.
So as long as you get off my lawn, that's all I care about. So what are the other?
Though, is, the millennial conversation came up a lot when I was, a chief at the 24th, because all these leaders are like, "Oh, it's next generation," or the conversation came up a lot. Are they softer, and like we had to analyze that. But when I was running selection and training, these guys are hard as nails, man. Like, these guys are just as hard as anybody else. But the approach has got to be different with them. And so I found that my generation, our generation, you could yell at me and treat me like a dog, and I would just keep going, man. Like, keep wagging my tail,
right.
Yeah.
You guys now,
fine. Any attention is good attention, even if you're mean to me. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, hey, that guy's talking to me. How cool.
Maybe he'll be nice to me later. Yeah. So these guys now expect to be in the conversation. They expect to understand the why. Some people would say it's a sense of entitlement, but I think it's intellectual curiosity, right? I think there's a time and place for it, for sure. And it's super annoying as a senior leader to have that. But, if you explain the why to these guys, man, they are just as good or better than anyone else. And so I don't subscribe to the logic that, these guys are any less. I think, candidly, they're just different. They're getting way better training than we did. Yep. Our selection processes are looking at things that we never looked at. We just looked at who was the toughest guy who could run the fastest mile, right? And it was so...
Wait until the smoke clears, baby. Just punch him in the mouth every single day. Start at 4 a.m, end by the time dinner's over, and just punch him in the mouth. And when the smoke clears, if somebody's there, great. That's how we were selected. That's how we did it. That's not the best way to do it.
And so were we the hardest? I don't know, but that we definitely didn't have high IQ EQ in the mix as a defining quality. I mean, we had tons of smart guys, but
sure.
But as we kind of like peel back the onion, the conversation's always brought up, well, how do we make the ideal operator? What are the guys we're selecting for? And that's changed over the years, right? So back in the day when we were selecting to come up to the unit at the 2-4, like, it was a lot of the bias of you looking to find yourself and other people, right? And so you had all of these, successful operators picking people that are just like them, or people they wanted to hang out with. And what you had is you had basically a mirror image of everybody, but we had a bunch of alphas who were, always not always in conflict, but always at,
You can say always in conflict. It's okay, buddy. You're out. You can say whatever you need to.
But yeah, there was conflict, and there definitely was a pecking order. And now the team rooms are different, right? You have guys that, you have the shy, introvert who is just as successful as the boisterous, beat your chest, alpha in the room. It's like, man, we're looking at qualities, we're looking at skills, we're looking at what you bring to the table. And then the old adage that like leaders are supposed to be this, outgoing, alpha. It's like, man, you don't need that to be successful. You just need to be able to connect people, and you need to be able to lead effectively within all those different tenets of leadership. so we've had this epiphany. I guess that's what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way. We've had an epiphany, and we realized that we can select for more targeted attributes. And so I'll tie it back to the first part of this conversation. How do we select against people that are going to be successful within that ambiguity? And I think that's an important aspect.
Well, you brought up a good point. Since we're talking about Gen Z, I mean, they have so many aspects that are phenomenal. I mean, a lot of these people, they have grown up, whether you believe in CrossFit or like it or not, like it's like some of these folks are at a physical level that I have never been at. But so we're talking about great IQ, EQ, extremely intelligent, but they ask the why, and you said that they want to know the why, and then they'll keep going. So one of the things that you have to figure out in that ambiguity, environment, right, or is what does success look like? Like how is it measured? So when we tying it back into near peer and the future fight, like what does being successful actually look like to you?
So I think there's a million different angles you could look at success, but I think one aspect is resiliency. I think it's one of those, it's kind of an innate quality, but it's also something that can be cultivated. And resilience, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you put all these mechanisms in place for resilience, and then you become, it's like a dramatic. You're like, well, now do I need, soft tissue therapy because my back hurts, or do you just take Motrin and keep going? It's this fine line, And so I think resiliency, mentally, physically, I think the trainability aspect of folks is going to be a key, a key attribute. But yeah, how do you measure success, man? Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from a strategic level, like senior leaders, how are they measuring success in a force? I mean, I think they're just looking at numbers of folks that are on the line able to, perform their job. And so it's going to be a numbers game. And so resiliency plays into that. But the other factor is training, right? So our training is going to have to shift. The sprint that we've been doing over the past 2 decades to get ready for war, that's all we've known. And we're institutionalized into that system, right? And so it's going to be really hard for senior leaders to be successful in transitioning those training programs to meet the needs of the future because, they're indoctrinated, right? They're institutionalized. I was. And so, how do you do a hard reset? Everyone's talking reset right now, but do a hard reset and really change the script and how we're approaching this stuff. So I'd have to ask you to tell me what avenue of success you want me to define, because I can go on tangents on either way and I won't say anything. So,
well, it's like I said, I just think that proves the point, right? Is that there's so many different, measures of success. There's so many different goals. There's competing interests from not only the U.S., the DoD, Department of State. Like there's so many different avenues and end goals that it's hard to define. So people that aren't, I can pretend, or I can say what success looks like to maybe special tactics, right? But that's it. I could kind of guess what the Air Force's definition of success is. Then you got to go on to our sister services, Army, Navy. What is SOCOM's idea of success? So there's so many different ones. Everybody's competing, and it's kind of a BS question that I'm asking you in terms of how do you define success, because through your lens, you're looking at it through the organization that you left. How do they define success? So it was just a question to generate just kind of conversation.
I would say that so SF is going back to kind of their core mission, right? They're doing a lot more FID, emphasis on that. They got rid of the SIFs just recently. The Navy is going back to maritime-based stuff, kind of getting out of the sandbox and going back to some of those really exquisite platforms that they have. And then the Air Force is going through an inflection point too. And, you'd be stupid not to recognize the fact that we're going through a change. And in this whole time, when I say ST, I'm also including PJs at rescue side because I just look at the kind of the special warfare umbrella, right? PJs and controllers are going to have to embrace that or get out of the way. And there has been a hesitancy to kind of to pivot from what we know or what we were trying to build to, capability wise. I think controllers are probably feeling that there's going to be less JTACs in team room, right? That's just a reality. So, do you embrace the airfield mission and what it really means to global access? Because that's a cool mission, man. Like, it's not sexy, right? But we've defined the sexy as shooting people in the face and doing all this stuff downrange. That's one aspect of warfare, right? The things that make you special, like we were talking about in the beginning, the things that are distinguishing factors are the reason I can take, Peaches and say, hey, go to this airfield, man. Tell me if it's suitable. And let's land a plane in the middle of the night and do some, sketchy stuff, right? That's a distinguishing capability. To take a PJ or two PJs and put them in an environment, say, fix all of our contingency problems. Like, what do you mean medicine? No, all of it, right? Now we're saying we have a refined capability that no one else can do. And then the SR piece is growing. It's a really cool kind of new thing that's amorphous right now, and it's growing into something. It has potential to be distinguishing capability, not necessarily a one and the same capability, right? And so if guys are willing to look at it and say, how do I make myself fit in this next fight? What do I need to change training wise, mindset wise? Are leaders going to empower them to do that? Or are they going to be stuck in the old ways? Like I was just saying about us, like let's do it, man. Like, there's a lot of room for growth. But we have to be willing to kind of look past the past 20 years, which were a one-off. Hopefully that never happens in history again. That we're just at continuous like conflict forever and not having any strategic goals. We're just, we'll just go fight for a little bit. Guys loved it because they were, notching their belts, with combat. But it's like, for what? Like, we leave Afghanistan. What happens to Afghanistan? I don't really care, honestly. Like, civil war, who cares?
Right. Yeah.
We got civil war happening in the United States, man. Like, let's focus on things that we can control. And so, these are kind of big ideas, but yeah, man, like I think those changes and those inflection points within SOF specifically, those are important to recognize that they're happening, whether you want them or not. So,
yeah. Well, and I heard a lot of things that I really connect with, because for people out there that don't know, as soon as you hit in the operational community, when you hit like E7, they start issuing you catchphrases, and then you have to develop catchphrases alone. Like, you can't
like something's coming my way here.
Exactly, it's coming. But one of those catchphrases that I've been using is like, our career field, AFSPEC War as a whole, you had better find something that only the Air Force can do, that we can do to the gold standard, that we can give that SOCOM enterprise, or you're going to become irrelevant. And it's one of those things that we really have to focus on, that global access mission, that contingency planning, that far forward, cross-domain, intra-theater sort of competition. We need to make our home. But what that really means, we have to start looking for people that have the attributes, that have those things. That's why the whole, people are hesitant to it, because, just like we said earlier on the podcast, we are so used to this. Well, if it's not ridiculously hard and you're not just getting punched in the face every day, and that's not selection, as we've moved towards those like attributes based selection programs, that's probably, arguably more important because of the way that we're going, because of those things that we're going to ask people to do. Just like you said earlier, anybody can do basic tactics. Anybody can do cordon, call out, and direct action on a compound. Listen, we got that. We can do that. We're not asking you to do that anymore. So when we start talking about technical competency, what are we looking for in the people that we're bringing into the Air Force, to the people that we're talking now, coming into spec war? What does technical competency actually mean to you? Like, how do you define technical competency? Because unless we define it, we don't know how to select for those people, or, for us, how to prepare them, how to give them what they need.
But yeah, I think technical competency comes part and parcel with intellect, right, and trainability. And so, before I go, now I want to touch. There's this kind of the physical attributes and the things that we expect of guys, and then these kind of amorphous attributes that we want. I think they have to be able to coexist, and you still need hard dudes. You still need guys that will go run to the sound of gunfire, that are hard, hard as nails. And we want all these other attributes. But sometimes you can't have your cake and eat it too. You know what I mean? We all know the guy, who's 230, just jack and steel all day, dumb as a box of hammers. You need him. You know what I mean? Every team needs him. But he's got a place. You want the best of both worlds, right? You want the guy who's a stud and who's smart. We want all of these things. And I think right now in selections, there's like kind of this hyper focus on these attributes that are like, we want high EQ. Like, okay, cool, man. Like, yeah, I want that. I want a guy to be able to, handle himself in the team room and behave appropriately. I want him to be able to connect to the people he's leading. I want all those things for sure. But no kidding, what are we asking the people to do? And that's something that gets lost in these conversations about selection and attributes, all this stuff, is that when it comes down to it, what are we actually paying you to do? All the other stuff is enhancing. Like if you're a controller, I need you to be able to jump out of an airplane, static line with a bunch of, HUAs and take down an airfield and run ATC. And some of that's going to be really hard, right? That's going to be a long night. And with PJs, I want you to be able to jump out into the middle of the ocean with huge waves over your head and save someone's life at the risk of yourself. Those are kind of like primal aspects, right, of our jobs. That's just doing hard stuff. So now we want those guys to be these, what is the term they use? It's like the warrior diplomat or something. I've heard all these terms get thrown around within SOF, and it's like, dude,
it's the nerds that won't quit. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Is it real? I don't know. I mean, like we have them, but the standard. So yeah, I want to say this. So you asked the question about technical competencies. I think we can get there with people if they're trainable, right? So in selection of the 24th, we looked at guys that are trainable because we wanted them to do, complex things under high stress. Can they learn from their mistakes and put into application the next run? Those guys are successful wherever they go because they can come into an environment and say, yeah, we need to go that direction. I'm going to create this widget. Yeah, we'll go. So those they're symbiotic, man. That was a scissor I just did unintentionally.
It was so good. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
For everybody's I'll watch YouTube.
It's gonna go.
You gotta go right now. Content.
Yeah, that's right. Synergy.
Oh. Yeah. Well, synergy. We put white out on a B. It died.
But yeah, man, I think trainability, intellect, all those things are really important. Still need hard dudes. And I guess now the conversation is gals too, right? But that's for another podcast for you guys to have. I don't know if you guys have already thought about that, but that's a reality.
I got to be honest. It's one of those questions that we just are so sick of answering because we always have the same answer every single time. Yeah. I don't care. Do they meet the standard? Can we please quit talking about it and just move on?
Yeah,
all right.
Don't change the standard.
All right, cool. Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I hear a lot of what you're saying, and I always say that we want mature problem solvers, and that's one of those attributes that we look for is problem solving. What does problem solving mean to you? When I say I want you to look for problem solving in somebody, what does that mean to you?
So I've got 17 combat deployments, right? And within a lot of those deployments, I did a lot of kind of non-traditional stuff. I saw you guys had, Terry Hewen on your podcast. Like Terry and I deployed, quite a bit together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, within that spectrum of things that are undefined, I find myself problem solving the aspect of, hey, like we go in this area, what do we need to be thinking about? And so I, have to reverse plan everything as the PJ and figure out every contingency that people don't care about because you got a PJ and he's going to fix it, right? So problem solving in what we call the AFO environment or OP environment, right? So it's kind of like your onesies and twosies somewhere. Everything's unscripted and undefined. You have very limited resources. In one of the regions I was operating in, we had no CASEVAC. And so I had to figure out how to get some non-traditional aircraft to support me. And, leadership was like, well, use international ISOS ISOS, international SOS. And I'm like, they're not, what's the response times? Does this meet your criteria for risk mitigation as a senior leader? And a lot of it was out of sight, out of mind. So I just had to fix it, right? So problem solving became, me connecting with folks with me doing a lot of stuff out of dissimilar platforms, and a lot of advocacy, whether it be foreign partners, foreign services that were in theater doing sketchy stuff too. And so a lot of that was taking place. And so when I came out of that environment of a true problem solving environment, that really we had a lot of money to do a lot of different things. We had a lot of leeway and authorities. We didn't have a lot of oversight. And so it was a perfect kind of incubator for innovation and kind of new ideas and those things. But when I went to, back to the teams, or leading the teams at the 2-4, that was still in my mind. That was still how I approached problems. And it was different, it wasn't as linear. And that's annoying to some people. But to some people, it was like, okay, yeah, maybe we should start looking at this differently. And so I know that was kind of ambiguous answer to problem solving, but I can't give super specifics in kind of those realms. But yeah, that was kind of part and parcel with those mission sets.
Yeah, that's like, asking you to define, how do you measure success? Like, how do you measure problem solving? How do you get better at problem solving? Like, that's one of the things that we, because we always preach problem solving on the podcast. And we've gotten several questions like, okay, well, how can I help my problem solving? It's like, well, man, you just gotta, I don't know, there's ways that you can do it, but it's critical
The
thinking.
only thing we're learning from this podcast is that our outline sucks and our questions need work. That's what we're learning. Like,
how do I problem solve that?
Man. I think it's important. It's important.
How do I problem solve that?
I mean, because really, as a young guy, if you're coming into this, what am I getting into here? And as long as you go in with your expectation management, like that, the old CT, VEO, GWAT days are over. That was a lot of acronyms to say the counterterrorism fight is dwindling, still exists, but we're going into this new world that is undefined and it's unscripted. If it goes to major combat operations and we're sending 1 million people over, to fight the little green men, that's a different conversation. That's very scripted and very linear. It's go fight, right? It's going to suck. We're going to lose a lot of people. On the other side, when we talk proxy, and we said proxy in the beginning, proxy wars, that's the unscripted stuff, right? That's when we have to be creative and kind of figure it out. And so as a young guy, if I went in with an older guy telling me that's my expectations, I wouldn't be surprised by it. And I wouldn't be complaining that I thought that I was going to be doing, assault in Iraq, or, mountain operations in Afghanistan. Like, those days are a chapter in our history, right? And I don't ever want to forget them. I never will forget them. But we have to look to the future. And if the guys come in with that expectation that it's going to be different, they won't get as disappointed, because there's a lot of that going around too. There's a lot of guys in their first enlistments right now that are punching because they're disappointed because they wanted what my experience was. At these guys, I'm like, it's just different, man. It's not better or worse. It's different. But if you came in for that mission, that's where the disappointment sets in. And the guys that aren't able to embrace that and move forward are the guys that are really disappointed right now. There's a lot of that, man. And I feel for them, because when I came to the 2-4, I saw the missions the guys were doing and I wanted to do that. And I got to do it, right? It was very results oriented. When I came home from those deployments, you could measure success, and I'll talk to the success piece, on the amount of missions you did. And, did you do your job effectively? Did you jack anything up? It was very linear success for me. When I became more senior, success was defined differently, right? And in the future, it's going to be really hard to come home from a deployment and say, was I successful? Like, I didn't shoot anybody, I didn't save anybody, I didn't cut someone out of an aircraft wreckage. Was I successful? And these are kind of big things that leaders need to think about, how to articulate to their young guys, how to celebrate what we define as success coming off the battlefield, or within training and those things, and not to handhold, not to always be stroking their egos, but we need to be able to measure that stuff as leaders and empower those guys to understand that. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of disenfranchised people, man. And it's not just the Air Force; it's across the services. I mean, guys, SF guys are coming in and like, I don't want to do FIT, I want to do direct action. Well, where do you want to do it at? Because we're not
right. Where do you want to go, guy? Yeah. Well, and I've I connect with that a lot because as we wind, we're getting kind of close to the end of this trip, and me as a senior leader, like I'm doing that admin stuff that happens at the end of it, and I'm really looking at this. I thought that my guys out here, and I've told Peaches because he's obviously my chief back home, but I've told my friends, people that ask me, they're like, "Hey man, how's this going?" And they almost ask sarcastically, and dude, I've got more work than I know what to do with. I can't figure out how to get this done, but it looks completely different. You're right. It's not, I have X amount of saves. I have 5 assists. I've killed this many people by dropping bombs. I've done this many missions. We went out this many times a night. It looks completely different. And I'm feeling that pain kind of as one of the first guys that's went all the way through an AFSO 4 gen for this new mission. And then, luckily got a deployment doing the new mission that we're moving to here where I am. And I got to be honest with you, like I completely connect with what you're saying, because having to communicate it to my guys, and I've had a couple conversation with the guys here, like, hey, I know you're kind of poo-poo about, you think that you were going to do one thing and now we're doing this thing, but let me tell you like what 6 looks like here, because you guys have been crushing it, and it's tough. You're totally right.
And the other important aspect is like white space, and guys aren't used to having it, and we talk about mental health all the time, and ops tempo, what does that do to you? I was in that churn where I just wanted more and more. I would deploy tomorrow if they asked me to, and nobody wants me to though. That's
it's addicting though. It's like it's a constant feed. You're like, hey, this deployment. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm on it, and you'll do it at the detriment of yourself and of your family if you happen to have one.
That's right.
Like, but it is. I've never been on crack, funny enough, but like I equate it to being a crack fiend. Like you just need that high, Well,
I've been smoking a lot of
bath salts. That's what we're talking about. Bath salts.
No, I'm with you, man.
I love how Peach just had to qualify. Funny enough, I've never smoked crack. If you know me,
never. Just disclaimer, since it's recording, I've never done that.
Exactly.
Right? Just a disclaimer, real quick.
I always pay my taxes.
Yeah.
So, but white space, what is white space? White space is that time in the calendar that you're supposed to be, potentially just taking a wrap off, spending time with your family, getting those mental health checks, getting your body right, get your mind right, and embracing, right, that stillness. That to say, how do you equate success, or how do you drive guys to that, motivate them and define success? And I think you can do that with the intensity of training, right? A lot of things that we've neglected over the years, and I'll just speak from the PJ aspect of things. Like PJs can't be good at everything. It's impossible. You have guys that are really good at jumping. You have guys that are really good at medicine, good at ropes. You can't be good at everything, despite how awesome you are. It's just a bandwidth issue, right? Because a lot of it takes reps. You want to be good at shooting, you need to be a dry fire, you need to be at the range. But if you focus on medicine all the time, other things atrophy, right? And so it's that balance. But now we have the ability to kind of refine our capability, make guys way better, sharpen that spear, right? And focus on the things that we anticipate as the priorities and the mission. And so, there's a lot of opportunity there, man. Like there's an opportunity to motivate guys towards that direction and still get that same sense of satisfaction. When I was in Oki, we used to do hard training out there because it was a bunch of like senior PJs. They were locked on. The standard was very high. I was nervous going to training events with those guys back then. I was like, man, I don't want to mess up. I remember we were doing waterworks, and I was on boat party. I was in a Zode with Chief Biddick. He was a staff sergeant at the time, and we're in this Zode out there, and the helo broke, and so we're sitting out there for hours in the water. And so they finally come back out, and I screwed something up in the process, and he Q3'd me for it. And I'll let you ask him what he Q3'd me for, but I got Q3 as a PJ, which means I wasn't qualified. And so I had to pay my penance to get back up. And so there was a standard there, man. Nowadays, my days coming up was, man, we had to get you on the line. So if you messed up, okay, can we overlook it? Yeah, let's get you up, and you messed this up in training. All right, is it mission essential? Because it's all about that tempo and deploying. And so now leaders can be like, man, we hold a high standard for training. We're talking about, if you're JMing something, like better be freaking perfect, because you are the JM. The days of being a JM because you need a JM because you needed to do a pay jump, and we just had to have guys that could do it. Like, I think those days should go away. I think we should go back to, and if you're the JM, you are the man at jumping. You know what I mean? At the unit. If you're the AJM, you are watching his ass, and everyone's looking to you guys to set the tempo for everything. And so this white space could be really healthy for everybody, if we can get the insatiable appetite for tempo and results based upon how much CAS did I drop in this deployment? Did I save someone's life? Like, we ask those things. And they might come again, but they might come at the greatest cost. If they do a major combat operation in China or North Korea, man, dude, those guys are going to have the biggest fight. It's going to be a fight that I maybe I wasn't ready for, And so I would say, as long as they have that in the back of their mind, urgency and the realism of something big happening, they can step up their training game a lot.
Well, man, Chad, I could keep going down. We could keep talking about this, but I want to make sure that before we kind of wrap it up, like we do this with basically all our guests, and we kind of ask them, what advice you would give to folks that are aspiring to join, whether it's what they can expect on team, what they can expect after, their career or whatever, whether it's preparation for A&S, the pipeline. Hell, we've been talking about the future fight. So, I mean, you could even go in that way, but what advice would you give to those folks that are wanting to join, or even newer guys on team?
Yeah. So the first question, come into this. These guys are way more prepared in nutrition. They have workout plans. I just knew I had to swim and run. That's all I did. And so I was in Hawaii, and I was going to the public pool, and I was learning how to swim right, even though I was a surfer. And I was learning how to run without cramping up and falling on my knees like I was after a mile. And so I came there as a scrawny, unassuming kid who, if you lined with 80 people at selection, if you lined us all up, there's no way someone would pick me up and said that's the guy that's going to make it. I would have been in the half that said he's part of the 10% that's going to make it. And I approached it as one day at a time, right? So I would fight to lunch, and then I would fight to get back to my hooch and go to bed every morning. Every morning I'd say, I'm going to get to lunch. And then after lunch, I'm going to get past this next event. And I never looked at it like, when am I going to go to airborne school? All the guys that talked about it like that are all the guys that quit because they couldn't handle what was in front of them. And it is, man, the split, I think, is probably like 60-40 mental toughness to physicality. Because you can be a stud, but you're going to get broken when times get tough when you're in the water, right? And that was my super strength, is that the water, I was just chilled out in the water, I was calm. And so I kind of used that to say, okay, this is my quiet time. When I was doing drown proofing, it's my quiet time to chill out.
Oh, that's nap time.
Yeah. So, but in the morning time, like that's evals on Monday, you do this eval, and can I make it through this? And when I did, I celebrated those successes mentally, right? That's important. And I think that for anybody who is aspiring to be, join our community, like I said, don't be intimidated by your physicality. You got to be strong for sure, but your heart's got to be there and your mind's got to be there. So there's hope. Not like Captain America. Like that kid was, that was really skinny. I don't know if you can be that skinny and still make it through, but we have some.
Well, he had steroids too, Chad. Like, let's talk about it
That's
in a real sense.
That's the future of human performance for special ops. So I might be.
Hey, real talk. They're putting out the anti-aging pill next year. I'm in, baby.
That's right.
You thought you had me for another 4 years. Joke's on you, my guy. I'm for another 10. Right. Give me that pill right away.
So what to expect? Training is top notch. We circumvent a lot of the system. We get the guys into the best schools and courses right off the bat. Like that's a perk, right? You're gonna do heroic stuff, man. You might do it in training. You might save someone's life in training, right? The team room is an environment that you're not ever going to be replicated on the outside. Being with people that are just, I mean, not saying just like you, they're not copies of you, but same humor for sure. That doesn't translate to civilians. That camaraderie, training together all the time and understanding each other's limitations, having each other's backs, like those teammates, even the ones you didn't really get along with that much, are deeper bonds than you're ever going to have in another job. Like jobs aren't teams, you know what I mean? You go to a corporate site, you go to a job, it's not a team. Even though I try to make it a team, but you have that dynamic. And then the other piece is training with the mindset of you might do this for real. To me, that's the hope, right? And our generation got to do it in a really heavy way, and it cost us a lot. You know what I mean? I talk about combat and all those things in kind of this glamorous way in the past hour, but combat is hard. It comes at a cost. Not just the people that were killed overseas, but the people that were injured in training. That's a reality that we all know too well. So not all of combat is fun and pretty. But those realities of warfare are the things that kind of always kept me in, and especially as a PJ. And I won't speak for others. I've lived with controllers my whole adult life, but the noble aspect of laying in the line for somebody else, to me, is the reason I became a PJ, and I got to do that, for real, in combat. And it was the noble aspect of PJ. And so the young kid in the team room who's maybe disenfranchised right now, this things, I will tell you, man, like, I didn't know 9/11 was going to happen. I didn't know I was going to be at war my entire adult life. I didn't know that. I had no idea. All I wanted in my life was to wear a balaclava and shoot an MP5 ST. And when I came to the 24th, I got to do those things. I had never been happier.
That's it. You did it.
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but I got my first pair of GSG9s when I showed up to the unit.
Yeah.
I had made it. And it was, of all the gifts I've ever received in my life, that was the most important. And I was wearing them, and then the soles came off on them and had to throw them away. And they don't make them anymore. So if Adidas is listening, I'd love a pair.
GSG9s.
GSG9s.
I can't believe we had to end on such a downer. You had such a good thing going there,
yeah,
Chad, and then you took it right into the loss.
No, I can close this out. So the guys in the team room, it's coming, man. Like what I was saying was, I didn't know what it was going to turn into. Don't either. Be humble, train hard, take care of your brothers. If you're a senior leader, take care of your people like the way you wanted to be treated. And you guys will come out great on the other side. And I talk to a lot of young guys when they're thinking about becoming PJs. I have these phone conversations with them, and I tell them the same thing, man. Take every day, each day, just incrementally. Be mentally tough, take care of your brothers, and yeah, man, I think you'll be successful. And if you're not, there's lots of other jobs for you to do. You can be a controller.
Just joking. Oh man, the shots are fired. Although I will say it's a statistic. Nobody has ever said, "Yeah, control was too hard, so I just went to PJ." I'm just saying.
Yeah, facts are facts, man.
This is what happens, Peach, when you have two PJs on the podcast. Thank goodness we finally.
Yeah, I can hold my own.
Yeah, they're just words. They don't hurt you, right? That's the final thing. Words can't hurt you, okay?
Words can't hurt. Chief McCoy, thanks for coming on, man. Chad, we really appreciate you coming into the team room for us and sharing not only your perspective, but your experience over, more than 20 years of what you've done, which is, nothing to sneeze at. We really appreciate you coming and talking about your experience with leadership and how we're looking for that next generation. And, I really love that you touched on this new generation of guys and gals that's coming up is every bit as hard, every bit as capable, and we just have to find a different way in order to get them to that operational success that we tried so hard to define in here. So from me, from Peaches, I'm sure Trent and Brian feel the same way. Thanks so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate you coming on. So again, appreciate you coming into the team room. Everybody that's out there, thanks. Follow the YouTube channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Go ahead and ask us any questions. If you have anything for I'm assuming you don't have social media because you're just too cool for it, or do you? Or is there something you want to put out? Or you just want to
I'm the older generation, so I have a Facebook account. Yeah, I haven't used it in a while.
I'm still using MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace too. That's coming up.
Oh my God, if I'm not on your top
MySpace
8 right
is like
now,
Bitcoin,
I'm going to be
right?
so bad at you. Yeah.
Tom in there?
Tom in there?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, once again, thanks a lot. Thanks to everybody that's out there. If you're trying to earn each breath, hit us up on that DM. Hit us up on any one of the platforms that we got out there, and we really appreciate it. So train hard. We'll see you next time.
Light up.